Latin America stands on the edge of its most dangerous turning point in the last decades. Colombia's president, Gustavo Petro, has vowed to defend Venezuela if the United States launches a military strike. This comes as Washington doubles its reward for Nicolas Maduro's capture to $50 million, accusing him of running a major drug cartel. Speaking as commander of the armed forces, Colombian President Gustavo Petro has declared that Colombia and Venezuela were the same people, the same flag, the same history. He warned that any military action against Venezuela without the approval of Latin American nations would be treated as an attack on the entire region. His words came in the middle of one of the most volatile moments between Caracas and Washington in recent years. Only days earlier, the U.S. Department of Justice had doubled its reward for information leading to the capture of Nicolas Maduro from $25 to $50 million. American prosecutors accuse Maduro of running the Cartel de los Soles, a powerful network that moves massive quantities of cocaine into the United States, Europe, and Central America. For years, Donald Trump and Nicolas Maduro have been locked in a public feud. Trump brands Maduro a dictator who has destroyed Venezuela's democracy and turned it into a narco state. Maduro calls Trump an imperialist aggressor and blames U.S. sanctions for his country's collapse. Now that personal battle is merging with a far broader objective: Trump's drive to take the fight directly to the cartels. Donald Trump has long portrayed Latin American cartels as a national security threat to the United States. During his presidency, he authorized the Pentagon and federal agencies to treat the most powerful cartels not only as criminal organizations, but as terrorist entities. This opened the door to military options, usually reserved for foreign combatants, including targeted strikes, special forces raids, and even naval blockades. His message was clear: the fight would not stop at the U.S. border. Trump argued that cartels were not only flooding American cities with drugs, but also corrupting governments and destabilizing entire countries. Publicly, he targeted Mexican groups like the Sinaloa cartel, but his focus shifted sharply toward Venezuela after U.S. intelligence linked high-ranking officials in Caracas to a state-protected drug network. From Trump's perspective, cutting the head off the snake meant going after political leaders as well as traffickers. And no figure loomed larger in that plan than Nicolas Maduro, a man Washington accuses of controlling one of the most entrenched and dangerous criminal organizations in the hemisphere, the Cartel de los Soles. For the U.S., eliminating a target of that scale would mean turning to the same kind of covert, high-impact operations it has used against enemies across the globe. The United States has a long history of taking direct action against what it sees as dangerous actors, even in the absence of a formal declaration of war. Under U.S. law and presidential authority, special operations can be carried out when a target is deemed a threat to national security, terrorism, or international stability. These missions are often swift, precise, and executed with minimal public warning. One high-profile example came in January 2020, when a U.S. drone strike in Baghdad killed Iranian General Qasem Soleimani, head of the Quds Force of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps. Washington justified the strike by claiming Soleimani was planning imminent attacks against American interests. Similarly, operations against al-Qaeda and ISIS leaders, from Osama bin Laden in Pakistan to Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi in Syria, were conducted without formal war declarations, relying on intelligence, special forces, and advanced technology. If the U.S. were to apply this model to Nicolas Maduro or members of the Cartel de los Soles, it would not require a conventional invasion. Instead, it could involve targeted raids, covert insertions, or precision strikes designed to remove key figures before they could react. And that possibility is precisely what raises the stakes in this confrontation. Gustavo Petro's position has put Colombia dangerously close to a possible war. If he decides to form a military alliance with Venezuela, the country would no longer be neutral. It would be standing side by side with a government already in Washington's sights. This could mean Colombian and Venezuelan forces planning together, moving troops, and setting up defenses aimed directly at U.S. military units. In that scenario, any American strike on Venezuelan targets, especially leaders of the Cartel de los Soles, could quickly trigger a direct clash between Colombian troops and one of the most powerful armed forces in the world. Once political support turns into joint military action, the road to open war could be very short, possibly just days. For Colombia, the consequences would be huge and far-reaching. Economic sanctions from Washington could hit key exports like oil, coffee, and coal. International investors would likely pull out, the currency could plunge, and foreign credit could dry up. On the military front, U.S. forces could carry out precision strikes on Colombian air bases, radar stations, and command centers, severely reducing the country's ability to defend itself within days. Colombia's army is experienced in counterinsurgency and jungle warfare, with well-trained special forces, but it has no match for U.S. air superiority, naval power, or satellite-based targeting systems. While Colombian troops could mount strong defenses in difficult terrain and even carry out limited cross-border or guerrilla-style operations, they would be facing an opponent with overwhelming firepower, advanced drones, and the ability to strike anywhere at any time. In such a scenario, the war would be devastating for Colombia's infrastructure, economy, and security, leaving the nation isolated and vulnerable long after the fighting stopped. For Petro, it's a high-risk move that could drag the nation into a war it is not ready for and cannot win. But what about you? If you were in Petro's position, would you stand with Venezuela against the US or step back to avoid a war? And what do you think will happen next? Let me know in the comments. If you found this analysis useful, please consider leaving a like and subscribing to the channel. It helps us reach more people and continue producing this type of content.